Now that we've all been through the introductions, I want to introduce you to the basic concepts that we're going to try to unravel and clarify during the course of the semester. And the way we're going to do this is by jumping into the subject matter even before we talk about the syllabus and the requirements for the course. And what we're going to do is go into a moral problem. It's a very famous moral problem, and what I'm displaying here is a YouTube that we're going to watch just a short part of, because I find it interesting for our students, because it's one done at Harvard University, and it gives you a chance to see what a class looks like at Harvard University. It's in a course called Justice, taught by a professor at Harvard, Michael Sandel. I'll give you the link. You can also go into the videos section in course content, and you will see the video displayed there, so you'll have the link over there. And it's a very famous, it talks about a very famous example called the trolley example. Now, what I think is kind of interesting for you to do is kind of compare and contrast the kind of educational situation you see at Harvard versus what we have here at Kingsborough. But what's very interesting about this example, and it's an example made up by a female philosopher named Philippa Foot, a British philosopher, who died maybe in the, I'm thinking in the 2010 range, maybe, and I was actually, it must have been after that, so maybe it's the early 2010s. And what's interesting is I always thought about her as being a British philosopher until I discovered that she was the granddaughter of Grover Cleveland, I believe it was, a president of the United States. So it's kind of interesting. And what might help your understanding of this is I have a reading by a philosopher named Judith Jarvis Thompson in the readings section, in the readings folder in course content. And you can take a look at that. But let's first take a look at this problem. What we're going to do is just listen to, you can see a little bit over a minute of it. I might interrupt a few times as we're going through it to make a few comments about it and get you thinking about certain things. So get ready. We're going to start playing this. But let me warn you about one thing. Or I shouldn't warn you. I have something for you to look at over and above philosophy. After you finish worrying about the problem, take a look at Professor Sandel, because I'm going to ask you if he reminds you of any cartoon character that you may have seen on TV. But let's move on and see the beginning of the course of Justice and Professor Sandel's presentation of the trolley example. You might notice that the classrooms are decorated a little bit nicer than Kingsborough's, and despite the fact that you guys pay a lot more tuition, they managed to get a much better looking classroom. Also, take a look at how many students they have in. But those are kind of the peripheral issues. Let's continue and see what Professor Sandel has to tell us.
This is a course about justice, and we begin with a story. Suppose you're the driver of a trolley car, and your trolley car is hurtling down the track at 60 miles an hour. And at the end of the track, you notice 5 workers working on the track. You try to stop, but you can't. Your brakes don't work. You feel desperate because you know that if you crash into these 5 workers, they will all die. Let's assume you know that for sure. And so you feel helpless until you notice that.
Okay, let me just stop it for a second. In philosophy, it's kind of important. In ethics in general, it's going to be important to be very careful to understand all the details. Now, you should have heard the part of the example. Maybe quite a few of you don't know what a trolley is. A trolley is just like a one-car train that runs on tracks, sort of like a bus that you might see in the city of New York, but it only runs on tracks. And so it cannot veer off the track. So think of it, if the trolley you find confusing, think of it as a subway. But listen to the details, and if you missed them before, back up a little bit and listen to it again as Professor Sandell explains it.
But there is, off to the right, a side track. And at the end of that track, there's one worker working on the track. Your steering wheel works, so you can turn the trolley car, if you want to, onto the side track, killing the one, but sparing the five. Here's our first question. What's the right thing to do?
Okay, let us stop right there. That's what I want you to consider. See what the example is telling you. You can see, here at Kingsborough, even online, we have I have only 25 students, or maybe 26 students enrolled in the class. There, I think you see there are a few more, but that's because we pay a lot more tuition at Kingsborough, so you get the individual services. Okay, but going back to, I want you to think about this particular question. What is the right thing to do? And in framing it, I want you to see what options you have. So at this point, what I want you to consider is, first of all, what are the choices that you as this trolley driver are faced with? And give a little thought to what is the right thing for you to do in this situation. And think about it a while, maybe write it down on paper, and then in fact, I'm going to put up a discussion board. I'd like you to write the answer to 2 questions. That is just, first of all, what are the options? And then what do you think the right thing to do is?